You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. Jordan Reed over at ESPN.com, NFL draft analyst, took a way too early look at the 2025 NFL draft quarterback class. And some of the usual suspects are there at the top. I'm a little perplexed by this, quite honestly. Carson Beck, he has this category, top names to know. He's got Carson Beck there at the top of it, followed by Shedeur Sanders, Quinn Ewers, Jackson Dart. That's a little surprising. Cameron Ward from Miami surprises me as well. There's Jalen Milroe, and then Riley Leonard from Notre Dame, of course, the Duke transfer. Those are the top 7 that he has listed. And like, if I'm being very honest, and maybe this is just a situation where I'm a little bit, maybe I'm looking at that class and judging it against this most recent class, which many consider among the deepest quarterback classes ever. I mean, at one point, Spencer Rattler, who ended up with the Saints in round 5, was a projected number 1 overall pick, right? And then you have Caleb Williams, who some analysts consider a transcendent player, and Jay Daniels, who had the magnificent year, and Drake May. You know the list. Anyway, I don't know that if I am drafting a quarterback next year, which, I mean, the Saints might, I know that I'm excited about any of those guys I just mentioned. Then he's got a category that's the best of the rest. And there's 12 passers. And by the way, he lists these alphabetically. So it's not necessarily that as I get, and Garrett Nussmeier is in this group, but it's not necessarily that they're in this order per se. So he's got Drew Allar from Penn State, Max Brosmer from Minnesota, Jalen Daniels from Kansas, Noah Fafita from Arizona, TJ Finley from Western Kentucky, Dylan Gabriel at Oregon, Will Howard at Ohio State, KJ Jefferson now at UCF, There's Nussmeier, Donovan Smith at Houston, DJU now at Florida State, and Connor Wigman at Texas A&M. You know the interesting thing about that as I look through it? There's a lot of people really high on Connor Wigman. I mean, DJU was a 5-star. Nussmeier is really talented. Dylan Gabriel and Will Howard are transfers now at Oregon and Ohio State, respectively, that are both thought to be quarterbacks that will have their teams in championship contention. And then even when you go down to this like honorable mention sort of category, he just says it as other quarterbacks to know. There's some really impressive names in that group. Brady Cook, Cade Klubnik from Clemson, who was a 5-star. Grayson McCall, who's now, remember, the Coastal Carolina quarterback who transferred to NC State. We'll see what he does in the Power 5. Kyle McCord, who's now at Syracuse. Graham Mertz at Florida. Cam Rising. Will Rogers, who's now at Washington. You see what I mean? Like, there are some really, really well-known names and talented players that were high recruits and have done a lot in their college careers that are kind of in the also-ran category. I guess maybe the best way to say it is this year's quarterback class, and this is something that may benefit Garrett Nussmeier. This year's quarterback class, I don't know that it's necessarily top-heavy the way the 2024 draft class was, where half of the top 10 were quarterbacks. But I think you may have more depth in this class when you start looking at like the also-rans, including guys like Cade Klubnik and Brady Cook and Grayson McCall and Cam Rising and Graham Mertz. All have been really good college quarterbacks who with a good 2024 season could find themselves, in the draftable mix. I sort of look at this, though, in terms of Garrett Nussmeier of, does he have the parabolic rise this year, or does it come if he comes back for a 5th season? And I can't help but think of Zach Mettenberger, who in 2012 was an average quarterback and in 2013 became an all-conference caliber quarterback in his 5th collegiate season. Of course, Joe Burrow, which is an unfair comp for anybody, but I went back and looked. Joe Burrow's Pro Football Focus rating in 2018 was 78.5. 78.5. A year later, his rating was 92, which was made him the number 1 overall prospect from Pro Football Focus in that draft. So year to year, you saw this parabolic rise. And then Jaden Daniels, in time, y'all, we'll look back And when we talk about Jaden Daniels' season, we'll laugh about how absurd it was, but just passing the football, do you realize Jaden Daniels went from 17 touchdowns and 3 interceptions to 40 touchdowns and 4 interceptions? He went from 17 tuds to 40. He went from a rating of 101.4 to 143.7. Jaden Daniels threw for 1,000 more yards in 2 fewer games. Again, his 5th year. So the question really with Nuss, and I'm going to think about this a lot, especially because when Ryan Clark was here and he talked about Bryce Underwood, he said, we all better hope that Nussmeier has an awesome season and becomes a first-round draft pick because you don't want Bryce Underwood to sit. He's that talented. Well, I've got 3 examples that I just gave you in the last decade of LSU football, last 12 years of LSU football, of quarterbacks that went from a 4th-year player where they were good to a 5th-year player where they were outstanding. 3 examples of that, which you could be looking at it again with Garrett Nussmeier. And it's conflicting because we're all super excited about the unknown with Bryce Underwood and what that's going to look like. And could you get 3 years of starting quarterback play out of a transcendent player like Bryce Underwood? Or would you rather see Nussmeier back in 2025 to build upon whatever he does in 2024? We're putting the cart before the horse here. There's a lot of time and a lot of football to be played. But I just gave you 3 examples of 3 of the best quarterback seasons in LSU football history that all came from 5th-year players who were in their 2nd year starting at LSU. And that may be the opportunity ahead for LSU in 2025. We'll wait and see how it all transpires, but it's one worth keeping an eye on as we move throughout. These quarterback rankings, as of now anyway, got Nussmeier a little bit down the list, man. So, long time to go. Just interesting to take a look at it right now as we move along. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.